Dr. Chuck, the science schmuck.
Synchronize! Hopefully that's not too loud. You may notice that I'm sunburnt. Two, you may notice that I'm back. Where did I go? I don't know. You may actually not notice that. My viewership at the moment is now so low that I don't think anyone actually watches this channel. And if anyone's watching it, you're probably watching it 3 or 4 years. That's giving myself too much credit. 10 years out. I'm probably dead by the time you see this, because you'll probably be seeing this 200 years out. I won't be dead in 200 years, don't worry. Robot bodies will be a thing, and I'd really like to, have one. And then also have another one to inhabit. Regardless, it's now summer, I think. I don't go outside too often, except I have to mow my lawn now, apparently, and that's why I have sunburn, because I react like a vampire to light. I'm not a vampire, totally not a vampire. I totally don't drink the blood of, various people I find and empty into a bathtub that I bathe in to gain my eternal youth. Because I use robot parts. Or will, once the blood runs out. Irrigation. With blood. Not with blood. With water. Which is basically blood with the blood part taken out. I need to do it. Because you see, I have this problem. In that I have poor impulse control. Very, very poor impulse control. It's why I have no money. The reason I have no money is because I went to the garden center and bought all the annuals. Not literally all of them. I'm not that rich. You guys don't pay me. Although YouTube supposedly is giving me ads now without monetizing me. And I'm okay with that. But I spend a lot of money building a garden. Also, the gas company destroyed like half my front yard and replanted it with not enough seed. So I need to wooter it. And the question becomes, well, how do I wooter it? I work like 12 hours a day. Unfortunately, I need to work more efficiently, so I don't have to spend all my time redoing the mistakes of a different topic. I need to build myself an irrigation system. And now you're asking me, well, you filthy, filthy schmuck, why don't you just buy one? They're like $30 to buy an irrigation control system. The answer is, I didn't know that when I bought all these parts years ago. Now I actually have an application for them, so let's see what I can do. This is not one of the parts. That's how I attach my camera to the camera stand. What is the main portion of the irrigation system? Well, it's based on individual units. So I'm building just one unit because right now there is a shortage of pipe components to make all of the piping. So I'm just going to build one brain unit. The thing is, I'm not good at electrics, or electronics, or tronelectrics. So this is going to be primitive, because I do everything primitive. I'm like a caveman with a soldering iron. I don't know where it is right now, but I'll find it eventually. The caveman, I know where the soldering iron is. This, I bought this on Amazon, I think. I don't know. I don't even know if this is the right size. What I gather is that this is a solenoid control valve. It was somewhere around like, I don't know, $10 to $15. It's real little. You can see on the side it says, FDP 27 10 0.2 to 0.8 mph. Okay. So my guess is that right now water doesn't flow through this dingus. But if you were to connect 12 volts to those two things, it would in fact open. Ideally. Meaning that it can turn on and off a hose. Ideally. I'll clean that up later. I probably won't. The floor right now is covered in styrofoam and dust and a lot of water. Because apparently when you water the garden too much, it gets into the basement. So, a 12-volt dingus. That makes sense. Any sort of computer-controlled irrigation system needs to have an actual system control the water. You can't control that with your motherboard directly. The thing is, I'm not so good with computers, so I don't know how to do computers. So this won't have any computers in it. I need power. 12 volts. Now you could build a circuit to make 12 volts. That would be ideal. It's basically 1/10 of what most American walls are. You can put a transformer in, but I don't need to because I'm too stupid. So I find substitutions. One neat thing about Amazon is that you can get a lot of very cheap Chinese-made electronics that work just as well as American electronics for the most part. I mean, in limited applications like this. Like this is a wall wart. That's not a term that people use anymore, but back when I was a kid in the 80s, These were called wall warts because they were a lot bigger. They were these big fat things that you plugged in, and they actually had a physical transformer, and they were super inefficient. So the thing was, in the 80s, electricity wasn't very efficient anyway. But if you had everything in your house powered by wall warts, you just run up the electric bill just by having them plugged in, because they're transformers. They're constantly running. Now they're solid state. This is, oh boy, gotta learn to read Chinese. Doesn't the weird thing that looks like Gordon Freeman's symbol mean people? Or is that Japanese? I think this might be written in Japanese, which is weird because it says made in China. But I can't read either. So this is 0.5 amps. This thing supposedly takes up to 0.8. I don't know what a MIPIPA is. Millipipe something, I don't care. Yeah, 12 volts, 1 amp output. Okay, 1 amp is quite a bit. That should work. I probably don't need a resistor at all. Oh, I just got this thing. So I could cut that open and just get access to the wires, but I'm not that much of a barbarian. We have parts for that. These little guys. Oh, problem that the two male connectors don't actually connect very well. Hold on, I'm sure there's some female connectors in here. Oh, wait, there's one. Aha, female connector. Now I've just got those two control things. Positive, negative, I think. Maybe they're oh, they're even labeled. That's how nice people are to me these days. They actually label the positive and negative, so I don't have to find it out by licking it like a stenod. Which reminds me, I set up a device in my backyard, and I really hope I got the polarity in right. Because if you get the polarity on that thing wrong, you blow instead of sucking, and that's never good. You never want to get a blow when you expect to suck, or a suck when you expect to blow. That's how people die. So, I'm probably going to have to cut away for a second because I have to cut away this wire and actually solder it to these. It'd be nice if I had a connector for that, but I'm not that much of a non-barbarian that I use connectors, so I've got to do a little bit of soldering to get this in place and correct. So, I did my soldering. Ta-da! Look at that. Isn't that nice? It's pretty well connected, I think. Kind of hard to, because I got this little tiny soldering iron that needs a tip change, and it's super rusty because the humidity down here is incredible. But I still managed to heat it up enough to solder it to the edge, so I can always desolder later if I want to actually do this correctly and use connectors. But all you electronics enthusiasts and engineers out there are looking at me right now and saying, "Why you stupid?" The answer is actually probably the drain bramage, because lead just tastes delicious. I'm not going to eat the lead. That's dumb. So that's just a power supply connected to a valve. That doesn't make any sense, you say. Normally, if I were a competent engineer, these wires would have to go through a relay, a control system that would then be connected, or a transistor even, that would then be connected to probably an Arduino or other computer-style system that would turn on the circuit at a specified time of the day. So that, between the hours of, say, noon and 3, that's a really long time to water. I don't actually have that much water. It comes from a lake, supposedly, and I drink so much of it, and it just makes you thirstier the more you drink. Apparently it's unfiltered too, so if you don't urinate in the lake I drink from, don't do it, because I already do it. I can't drive that far, because I fall asleep a lot. Regardless, any sane, normal YouTube inventor will put a system on this to put on the timing with a computer. So, problem is, I'm not an engineer, for one, and I'm not a normal, smart, intelligent YouTube inventor. I have a better solution. This. Ta-da! Electromechanical timers. They're like $1. This one is actually the big fancy kind that costs like $2.50 at Walmart, but you can get the little ones for literally $1 plus tax, depending on where you are. Most people have probably seen these from time to time, although that's kind of weird. I can't say that for sure because I have a tendency to extrapolate my own life experiences. I should have brought a knife. It's theft proof. So I have a tendency to extrapolate my own life experiences and then say, well, everybody's done this. And then normal people say, no, nobody's done that. You're a weirdo. Stop talking to me and look the other direction and point that face away from me. Actually, these days I'm required to wear a mask because I'm so ugly that they don't want to look at me. But you have to look at me. You can turn the screen off if you want. So, electromechanical timers, if you've never seen one, which I don't know if is very likely or not, they have a motor in them. It's very quiet and very small and very slow, and it slowly turns this dial. I don't remember if up is on or not. The dial is basically a 24-hour clock, and it has these little tabs. You connect the tabs where you want the timer to turn on or off. I'm going to have to read the instructions. Quick, cut out the transmission so that people don't see me being weak. Un tubo corriente conecto a tierra. Enciende and un y apaga and off the... Yes, I totally don't need to read the instructions to understand things. I've got one of them big brains that actually has wrinkles and not metal embedded in it. So I am smart enough to never read the instructions. Up means off. So right now it's all off. Let's say that I wanted it to turn on for 2 notches. At, when do you think you should turn on this thing? I don't know, let's say, I can never remember if 12 p.m. is noon or midnight. So I'm going to say, turn on at 1 p.m. and then be 2 notches on. So that's not that much. But that means that if I set this, what time is it right now? It's about 2 a.m. So you may notice that there is a small clock on the videos. It's not right, and the date is definitely not right. You can just sort of assume that it's correct, though, because it doesn't actually matter. So we set it so that it has the time on. Then all we need to do is interface the internal circuitry of this timer to the circuit by plugging it in. I've become enraged, slightly. It's a very tiny enragement. This is why you don't buy the expensive one. The expensive ones are designed for bigger loads, and they have that. The ground plug. This tirade will not take longer than about 30 seconds because you need to see the end of the video where I test this. Ground plugs are almost universal in American outlets. You look at this thing behind me, ground plugs, ground plugs. Every outlet has a ground plug. Prior to like the 60s, they used to have 2-prong plugs, but every outlet now has a ground plug. Virtually every device uses a ground plug. Everything has a ground plug. Extension cords often do not. This is an issue. How am I supposed to connect to anything if it doesn't fit? Also, add on, American outlets use type A. 2 slits, one's bigger than the other, vertical. 120 volts. So that's not true in every country. A lot of countries use type A at 240. So if you see this and you're in America, make sure your appliance handles that voltage. If you're an American and you're in another country, I've seen it in Peru personally, and you see this outlet, know that it's a lot higher voltage, and if you plug an American appliance into it, it may very well explode. Most appliances like this are actually designed, though, to accommodate differences in voltage to be like this is it's circuitry inside, so it does magic. Circuits are full of this magical blue smoke that can do wizardry. I know because I've more than once overheated them and the magic blue smoke comes out. So this actually can adapt between 100 and 240 volts. You could plug this in. You could plug this in here or in Peru, and mosquitoes trying to land in my eyes. Hold on, I gotta go get a hose. Well, now I guess is the moment that you've all been waiting for. The moment where we actually test what I've constructed. So I've got this, it's all connected and ready to go with my timer. Now I just need to attach it to a hose. So gray hose here is the inlet. It's connected to the science sink. My basement sink has a screw-on aperture for hoses for some reason. I'm not sure 100% why. Interestingly, that allows you to shoot hot water out of the hose if you really want to. That probably has applications for some sort of exotic cleaning. But anyway, the exit hose is the green hose. It requires 2 hoses to operate this. So exit, there's a little arrow on the top. And yay, it's the right size. Looks like I got that right. And this is already connected, so I just need to connect this here and male-to-male connection. Not, well, functional, I guess. That's why I went to the store and got one of these. That's why I'm doing this in the morning. Or, I guess it's late afternoon. I don't know. Check the little clock thing in the corner. It's probably not correct. Female-to-female adapter. So the only way you can connect male-to-male is with female-to-female. I'm sure there's a metaphor or euphemism built in there somewhere, but I am not a sociologist. I almost took sociology in college, but I didn't really get that far. So that allows you to merge those two to the pump, or to the valve. The pump, there isn't a pump here. Additionally, I also went to the store and got this. I'm not sure how legal these are, but they are available if you know where to look, and they're super cheap. It's 3 holes in the front, 2 holes in the back. So that defeats the safety features. Now I can use it with my extension cord. I've just got to turn on the sink, and hopefully water will not shoot out of here too excessively. Okay, I'm going to have to try this again. Looks like we got a leak. Well, okay, I don't know if you can hear the sink running, but it should be applying pressure at this moment. There was a leakage issue, which hopefully I fixed. And hopefully I've dried the table enough that I won't get the volts when I try to connect everything. So, now in theory, this is connected so timer is on. Where is the little, okay, so we should be in the off position. So if I plug this in, oh, that was just in a bucket of water. So, I'm going to just dry that off and try not to die. That's the idea here, try not to die. Alright, so right now it's in the off position. All of these mechanical timers have a default on the top where you can switch it so it just runs electricity through. If I flip that, it should activate the valve, opening it, allowing water to exit through this hole. If not, it will short circuit and explode. Well, it didn't short circuit, but the valve does let water through. The only problem is it lets water through onto its own electric circuits. Let me just yank the cord here. Okay, incremental improvements. That's how this has to go. I have tightened that using pliers. I have put this on a wet towel so that the electricity will be absorbed by towel instead of me, and I have gotten this coffee bucket, I drank all the coffee out of it, to hold any water that comes through. Radio. Okay, I got the sink running now. Let's see if it does something. Ah! Water! That would be to a sprinkler when the timer turns on. Smelly. And then when the timer turns off, it stops. Well, okay. I'm remarkably dry despite that experience. This is slipping. There, you can see the actual system right there. It's wet, but it worked. It controlled the water so that when the timer activates, which I did manually by the switch, but it would normally be done by turning of the internal dial as it goes, when it hits a certain time, the water comes on. I filled this thing up with water. Plenty of water in there. Actually, it's pretty full. So, that means that this would function as an irrigation system with just a couple parts that probably cost me only a couple dollars. Ideally, if I had Y connectors, I'd be able to fit multiples of these to a single hose. There'd be one gray and it would split into like 3 or 4 of these. I could set them all to different times so they could come up at different times of the day. The primary issues I'm encountering with this particular design is, one, this particular valve is male on both ends, which means that you do need a connector. Two, it's leaky because it's plastic, which really should make it less leaky. I don't know. So those have to be on tight, or else it's going to squirt. And there's electricity, so that's kind of difficult. This would have to be assembled into, well, this would probably be put indoors ideally, but you could assemble it into a box with holes, or a can or something. But otherwise, I consider this a resounding, if somewhat damp, success. I can now use this outside in my garden to water my annuals. I feel pretty confident. I feel pretty good. So, yes, I consider this one to be a success. Something that has been built to do everything you could do with an Arduino with just kludge parts I found at the store. And I'm not electrocuted. So, time to go do something else, I suppose. Extra.